And this is Rachel Weber of Jewish Voices for Peace.
Hello everyone, I'm Rachel Weber. As you heard from Priscilla, I organize with Jewish Voice for Peace, and I just want to address, in the brief time that we have together here, just a few really important points, some of which completely echo what Tanisha just said, and I'm super grateful for their words today. When people tell us that we don't know enough to comment about Israel, that we don't have a stake in it, why are we, holding up Israel to a different standard of conduct than other countries in the world? Everyone here who's ever engaged in a conversation about Palestine has probably heard some of these arguments. And, really coming to a pinnacle in this argument that it's not a domestic issue. And so we need to focus here at home, we need to focus on domestic issues and fix, get right with ourselves at home before we can look abroad. Speak louder? Okay. There are some incredibly important arguments to make back against that. This is all of our work. So I want to address first, if there's any Christian people in the audience, this is Christian Americans' work to do. The Christians United for Israel is an evangelical organization that actually is in our government. And it is actually affecting our international policy. And that may sound like a conspiracy theory, but it really isn't. I mean, Trump, Netanyahu, Pompeo, and Pence have all spoken at their events. And so I'm asking the Christians in the audience, organize where you have access. You have access to American Christian audiences. Call in your people and teach them about why Christian support for the annexation, for the continued occupation and oppression of Palestinian people is your problem, is all of our problems. So the thought that if you're told, well, if you're not Jewish, you can't comment, it's a complete fallacy. Because right now, the Trump administration is in large part acting to appease its evangelical Christian backing. So Christians, I hereby grant you permission to see yourselves as having a super important role in this fight. So now to my fellow Jews in the audience, this is our work to do as well. There is so many deep, important conversations we need to be having in our families, in our communities, in our places of worship. And there's one of my favorite things about being Jewish is that we're supposed to argue about everything. And from my understanding when I was a kid, the one thing that was not up for discussion was monotheism. I was like, okay, that's the one thing. Everything else, there's been literally centuries, millennia of debate, argument, writing, back and forth. And yet somehow in 1948, Israel got added to that list. After 5,700 years of there only being one thing on the list we couldn't argue about, now suddenly in the last 50 years, there's two things we can't argue about. And we don't have to accept that. We can stand rooted in our Jewish tradition of having a moral compass, looking back at our history of trauma and displacement and using that to step into compassion and empathy and our moral imperative to act. The oppression of Palestinians is happening literally in our name. And so American Jews, we absolutely have an obligation to stand up against the annexation and against the occupation and against the war on Gaza. So this is our work. And then I want to say also, any American in the audience, any American in this audience, this is your work to do. This is our work to do. $3.8 billion a year in military aid to Israel from our country. How could there be a more domestic issue than that? This is our problem, and this is our work, and the fact that the blood is being spilled on the ground across an ocean does not change our complicity. Every cent that we contribute is our complicity. And you might be told, you know, the history is too complex. You're not an expert. Well, I don't need to be an expert to know that $3.8 billion in military aid to uphold a military occupation, which if the annexation goes through, will literally turn Israel-Palestine into a single apartheid state. I don't need to be an expert to be appalled by that, to protest that, to put my body in the way of that, to put my words in the way of that, to organize my communities against that. So every single American in this audience, this is your work. This is all of our work. And then, just if there's any Palestinians in the audience, I just want to say that we are with you. We are with you. We are with you.